My beloved friends, there comes a time in every person's life when the heavens open and unexpected blessings begin to pour. Suddenly, the opportunities that were once hidden start to appear. Doors that were tightly shut begin to swing open. Wealth, abundance, and favor begin to find their way to you. But in those sacred moments, when money begins to come not from man, not from manipulation, not from luck, but from God, that is the moment to be still, to stay humble, and to remain wise. When financial blessings begin to flow, it is easy to forget where they came from. Many people, once they rise from scarcity to abundance, begin to see their success as the product of their own cleverness or effort. They point to their strategies, their education, or their networks and believe that they alone made it happen. But this mindset is where the downfall begins. True wisdom teaches us that every blessing, every increase, every open door, and every opportunity has a divine source behind it. The resources we see, the job, the business, the connections, are only channels. The real source is God Himself. When money comes from God, it carries not just material value, but also a spiritual responsibility. It comes wrapped in purpose, and it demands humility, gratitude, and recognition of the giver. The danger of forgetting the source is that it leads to pride. Pride blinds us into thinking that we are self-made, when in truth, every breath we take is a gift. Pride whispers, "You earned this," while gratitude quietly reminds, "You were blessed." When people start trusting the resource, the money, the clients, the business, they begin to drift from the one who gave it. Their prayers become shorter, their humility fades, and their hearts grow distant. The moment a person starts saying, "My hands have made this wealth," that is the moment they risk losing the favor that brought it. Divine blessing has a rhythm. It flows through gratitude and stops at arrogance. God never shares His glory with prideful hearts. Recognizing the source keeps your heart in the right posture. It helps you understand that wealth is not a measure of worth, but a measure of trust. When God blesses you financially, He is testing whether you will remember Him or replace Him. Many people cry out to God in their season of need, but very few remember Him in their season of plenty. The secret to sustaining blessings is to remain as dependent on God in success as you were in struggle. Gratitude anchors your spirit so that no amount of money can lift you into pride or sink you into greed. There is a quiet beauty in acknowledging the source. It protects your peace. When you truly know that your provision comes from God, you stop fearing loss because the one who gave can give again. You stop competing, comparing, and worrying because your trust is not in a paycheck, but in a provider. You become steady in both seasons, abundance and lack, because you know your source has not changed. Recognizing God as the source transforms money from a master into a servant. It changes your relationship with wealth from possession to purpose. Let's illustrate this with a simple yet powerful example. There was once a man named Samuel, a small tailor in a quiet town. For years, he struggled to keep his shop open. He prayed, fasted, and worked tirelessly, but customers were few. One morning, he decided to pray a different prayer. Instead of asking for customers, he thanked God for what he already had: his hands, his skills, his tiny shop, and the breath to work. That day, a stranger came in with a large order that changed his life. Word spread about Samuel's excellent work, and soon he had more business than he could handle. Within a few years, his small tailor shop became a well-known brand in his city. People admired his success, but Samuel remained silent about it. He still opened his shop each morning with a prayer of gratitude, still tithed faithfully, and still helped other struggling tailors by teaching them free of cost. When asked the secret of his prosperity, Samuel would smile and say, "I only sew the fabric. God provides the thread." This simple attitude kept his heart pure and his blessings secure. Samuel never confused the thread with the tailor or the needle with the hand that moved it. He recognized that his intelligence, skill, and customers were only resources. The true source was God. Because he stayed humble, his success did not destroy him. It refined him. His prosperity became a testimony, not a temptation. The example teaches us something deep. When you acknowledge the source, you stay centered. Gratitude turns success into service, and humility turns wealth into worship. Recognizing God as the source means you don't boast about what you have, you bless others with it. It means you don't fear tomorrow, because the one who supplied today is still on the throne. When you truly know that your wealth comes from above, you handle it with reverence, not arrogance. So when money begins to come, don't forget the hands that gave it. When doors open, remember the one who held the key. When success multiplies, keep your heart low before God. Never mistake the gift for the giver. The day you stop recognizing the source is the day the resource loses its meaning. But when you remain thankful, humble, and wise, heaven continues to trust you with more. Because God knows that the one who never forgets the source will never misuse the blessing. When God lifts you, when He takes you from the valley to the mountain, from struggle to success, from being overlooked to being chosen, that moment becomes sacred. It is a divine promotion, a quiet miracle that carries both blessing and responsibility. Yet many people fail to handle it wisely. The moment they are elevated, they begin to announce it to the world. They post it, boast about it, and make sure everyone knows that they have made it. But true elevation from God is not given for public display. It is given for divine purpose. The higher God raises you, the quieter you must become. There is power in silence. Silence protects what words can destroy. When you speak too soon, when you expose what God is still shaping, you invite envy, opposition, and spiritual attack that can suffocate what was meant to grow. When God blesses you, it is often not for you to announce, but for you to embody. The fruit of His favor is seen through your character, not your captions, through your humility, not your headlines. God lifts you so that people can see His glory reflected in your conduct, not your self-promotion. When you start proclaiming every detail of your blessing, you open doors for pride to enter your heart and for people to misinterpret your journey. What is meant to be divine quickly becomes a display of ego. That is why Scripture teaches, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. It means that your giving, your success, your breakthroughs should not become a public performance. Keep them between you and God. There is protection in secrecy and destruction in unnecessary exposure. When God lifts a person, He is often still building their foundation. Elevation is not the end, it is the beginning of a new test. If you announce too early, you might invite storms you are not yet ready to face. Many people lose their blessings, not because of the enemy, but because they could not keep quiet. They exposed what should have remained hidden until maturity. Silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. A seed must stay buried to grow. If it is pulled out too soon for people to admire, it dies before it bears fruit. A wise person understands that true success speaks for itself. You don't need to tell everyone that God has blessed you. Your peace, humility, and consistency will say it louder than words. The light of divine elevation shines naturally. It doesn't need to be advertised. When you keep quiet, your results speak. But when you boast, your words drain the spiritual power that should sustain you. God's favor is like oil. It flows best when it is covered, not spilled. The moment you expose it to pride and attention, it begins to lose its essence. Consider a short example. There was a young woman named Sarah who struggled for years to find a stable job. She prayed faithfully, gave generously, and trusted God through every rejection. One day, out of nowhere, she received an offer from a prestigious international company. It was beyond her imagination. Instead of posting it online or boasting about it to everyone, Sarah decided to thank God quietly and dedicate her first salary to help a struggling widow in her neighborhood. She kept working diligently, saying little about her success. Months later, her consistent humility caught the attention of her superiors. Without her asking, she was promoted again, this time to a leadership position. Her colleagues began to notice something different about her spirit. She never bragged, never compared, never acted superior. Her life spoke volumes, her silence carried weight. Eventually, her story inspired many to seek God rather than attention. Sarah's quiet faith did what loud pride never could. It glorified God. Her example teaches that when God lifts you, it is better to live the blessing than to announce it. Announcing brings momentary applause. Living it brings lasting influence. Announcing says, "Look at me." Living it says, "Look at God." The humble heart understands that elevation is not a platform to show off, but a responsibility to show grace. The people who rise and remain are those who let God's work in them speak louder than their words about it. When you stay silent about your blessings, you are not hiding them out of fear. You are protecting them with wisdom. The enemy cannot attack what he does not know. Jealousy cannot target what it cannot see. Silence becomes your shield. Even Jesus, after performing miracles, sometimes told people, "Tell no one." Why? Because the moment you expose something divine to the wrong crowd, it becomes vulnerable to misunderstanding and manipulation. So when God lifts you, don't waste time proving yourself to people. Those who truly need to know will see it without you saying a word. Focus instead on living in a way that honors the one who lifted you. Let your actions, not your announcements, reveal your elevation. Let your gratitude, not your pride, become your language. Remember, a crown does not need to shout to prove it's gold. It simply shines. True greatness is silent strength. True favor is quiet confidence. When God blesses you, keep quiet, stay wise, and live in such a way that your very life becomes a testimony of His goodness. Because when you live your elevation, instead of announcing it, heaven trusts you with more. When money begins to flow into your life, when prosperity and abundance start to manifest, it's easy to think that wealth is a symbol of superiority, a personal achievement that deserves admiration. Many people, once blessed financially, begin to see their riches as trophies, proofs of success, validation of effort, and evidence that they are more capable or favored than others. But in truth, wealth is not meant to glorify us, it is meant to glorify God. Money is never an end, it is a means. It is not the destination, but a vehicle to carry out purpose. When God gives financial blessings, He does not give them so we can boast. He gives them so we can build. When wealth comes from God, it carries a sacred assignment. Every coin, every opportunity, and every increase is a tool placed in your hands to make a difference. It is meant to feed the hungry, uplift the weak, educate the poor, heal the broken, and advance the kingdom of light in a world often filled with darkness. God does not bless us just to make us comfortable. He blesses us to make us useful. The more we are blessed, the more we are called to bless others. If we hoard what was meant to be shared, we misuse what was meant to be multiplied. A trophy sits on a shelf. It exists to be admired. But a tool has a purpose. It is used to build, repair, and create. That is the divine difference. When you treat wealth as a trophy, it ends with you. It becomes lifeless, trapped in luxury and pride. But when you treat wealth as a tool, it flows through you. It brings life to others and multiplies its impact far beyond your reach. God never intended money to control His children. He intended His children to control money. It is not to be worshipped but wielded, not to be displayed but directed. The heart that sees wealth as a tool remains humble and generous. Such a person understands that they are not the owner of their resources, but the steward. Everything belongs to God, and we are caretakers of His treasures. When you realize that your business, your property, your income, all of it ultimately belongs to God, you start to handle it with reverence and responsibility. You give not out of obligation, but out of understanding that you are partnering with the Creator in His mission to bless the world. There is also a spiritual principle that governs wealth. What you use for yourself alone will perish with you, but what you use for others will live forever. Every meal you buy for the hungry, every contribution you make to lift someone out of despair, every act of kindness fueled by your resources, these are investments that never lose value. The greatest wealth is not counted in your bank account, but in the number of lives you touch. Let me share an example. There was a businessman named Karim who started his life with nothing but determination and faith. For years, he struggled to keep his small store open. One day, he made a promise to God. If you ever bless me with abundance, I will never forget to bless others. Time passed, and his business began to grow. Within a decade, Karim owned multiple stores across the country. His success was visible, but his heart remained humble. Instead of using his wealth to flaunt luxury, he began quietly funding scholarships for orphans, supporting widows, and building water wells in villages where people had none. When asked why he did all this, Karim simply said, "This money is not mine, it's my assignment." He saw his wealth not as a reward to show off, but as a tool to serve. His generosity didn't make headlines, but it made history in the lives of those he helped. People prayed for him without knowing his name. His wealth became a river of blessings, not a stagnant pool of pride. That is the beauty of using money the way God intended. It becomes eternal in its impact. Kareem's story reflects the truth that wealth from God carries purpose. If you treat it as a trophy, you seek applause. But if you treat it as a tool, you serve a higher cause. God trusts wealth to those who know how to use it. The selfish may possess riches, but they will never have peace. The generous may give much, but they will never lack, because giving is the very heart of divine abundance. The hand that gives is the hand God fills again and again. When you understand that wealth is a tool, not a trophy, your focus shifts from showing off to showing compassion. You stop asking, "How much can I gain?" and start asking, "How much can I give?" You begin to live with open hands. And open hands are the only ones that can receive more. The moment you close your fists to hold tightly onto your possessions, you also close the channel through which God sends blessings. True wealth is not measured by what you have, but by what you can release for a greater purpose. When you use your blessings to build lives, you reflect the very nature of God, generous, compassionate, and wise. Wealth is a tool to shape destinies, mend brokenness, and spread hope where despair once ruled. So when money comes into your hands, don't turn it into a symbol of pride. Turn it into a seed of purpose. Let it serve, let it heal, let it speak for God where words cannot. Because the real measure of success is not in how much you own, but in how much good your blessings accomplish after you're gone. When prosperity begins to enter your life, when the doors of financial blessings open wide, the most important thing you can hold on to is not money. It is wisdom. Prosperity without wisdom is like giving a sword to a child. What was meant to protect can easily destroy. Many people pray earnestly for wealth, but few pray for the wisdom to handle it. Money without wisdom leads to chaos. It can turn a humble person into a proud one, a disciplined heart into a careless one, and a grateful soul into a greedy one. But when wisdom walks hand in hand with prosperity, blessings multiply instead of being wasted. Wisdom is the invisible guard that keeps your prosperity from becoming a curse. It teaches you when to save, when to spend, when to give, and when to wait. It helps you make decisions that build your future rather than destroy it. The truth is, prosperity is not just a test of generosity. It is a test of character. When people suddenly receive wealth, their inner nature is revealed. Some grow more generous, others more selfish. Some become calm and purposeful, while others rush into showing off what they have. That's why wisdom must come before abundance, because it is the foundation on which true success stands. Many people lose their blessings not because they were never blessed, but because they lacked the understanding to manage what they received. The Bible says, "A fool and his money are soon parted." That means prosperity can vanish as quickly as it came if handled carelessly. Wisdom teaches restraint. It whispers, not every door should be entered. Not every deal should be accepted. Not every desire should be fulfilled. When you allow emotions to to guide your financial choices, you end up serving money instead of mastering it. But when you let wisdom lead, you become the master, and money becomes your servant. Wisdom also teaches you to maintain balance. True success is not found in buying everything you want. It's in managing what you have with peace and purpose. Some people chase wealth so desperately that when they finally attain it, they lose their peace, their health, and even their families. Prosperity without balance becomes a trap. The wise know that money can buy a bed but not rest, a house but not a home, pleasure but not peace. They handle prosperity with humility, always remembering that God is the source of both blessing and stability. Wisdom also helps you discern when to give. Generosity is a powerful principle, but even giving requires guidance. If you give without prayer or purpose, you can be drained by the wrong people and miss opportunities to bless the right ones. Wisdom teaches you that giving is not about impressing others. It's about obeying God's direction. A wise giver multiplies their seed. A careless giver depletes their harvest. Let me illustrate this truth with a short story. There was once a man named who grew up poor but hardworking. He prayed for years that God would bless his small business. One season, everything changed. A large order came through, and his income multiplied beyond anything he had ever known. Overnight, he became wealthy. At first, he was grateful, but soon excitement took over. He began buying luxury cars, hosting lavish parties, and lending money without thought. His expenses soared, his giving became careless, and his humility faded. Within 2 years, the same business that had made him wealthy collapsed. His friendships vanished, and his peace disappeared. Broken-hearted, returned to prayer, asking God where he had gone wrong. In a moment of deep reflection, he realized it wasn't the blessing that destroyed him. It was his lack of wisdom. This time, he prayed differently. He didn't ask for money again. He asked for understanding. Slowly, he rebuilt his business with discipline, saving wisely, giving thoughtfully, and spending carefully. His second rise was quieter but stronger. He learned to let wisdom guide his prosperity instead of pride. When people asked what changed, he said, "I stopped chasing wealth and started chasing wisdom, and wealth began chasing me." This simple story teaches that money alone cannot sustain you. Only wisdom can. You can inherit riches, but you must grow wisdom. You can gain wealth overnight, but without understanding, it will slip through your fingers like sand. Wisdom teaches patience when you want to rush, contentment when you want more, and humility when you start rising. It is wisdom that tells you to seek God before signing a deal, to plan before spending, and to think before trusting. God does not just bless your hands, He blesses your mind. That's why He expects you to use discernment with every opportunity. The enemy can disguise destruction as prosperity, but wisdom helps you see the difference. Prosperity without guidance leads to downfall, but prosperity with wisdom leads to legacy. True wealth is not measured by the number of things you own, but by the peace you have while owning them. In the end, remember this truth: money can make you look rich, but only wisdom can make you stay rich. Prosperity can open doors, but wisdom tells you which ones to enter. Money can buy influence, but wisdom earns respect. Money without wisdom will fade. Money guided by wisdom will flourish. So, when God blesses you with financial increase, don't just pray for more wealth. Pray for more wisdom. Because wisdom is the lock that keeps your blessings safe, the compass that keeps your success steady, and the voice that keeps your heart humble when your hands are full. When blessings begin to fill your life and success starts to surround you, the greatest danger is forgetting where you came from. There is something sacred about remembering your humble beginnings. The sleepless nights, the prayers whispered in the dark, the moments of doubt and struggle that shaped your strength. Those days were not meant to be erased. They were meant to be remembered. Because when you forget the pain of your past, you also lose the appreciation for your present. Every person who rises in life must guard their heart against the arrogance that comes when success blinds them to their roots. The same God who lifted you can lift someone else. And the moment you begin to look down on others is the moment your blessing begins to weaken. Forgetting your beginnings leads to pride, and pride is the fastest way to lose favor. Many people, once elevated, start to behave as though they were always at the top, as though they never struggled, never cried, never depended on anyone. They rewrite their own story to make themselves the hero, instead of acknowledging the grace that carried them through. But a wise person remembers. They remember the hands that helped, the words that guided, and the moments when God's mercy kept them standing. Gratitude keeps the heart soft. Arrogance hardens it. Gratitude reminds you that you didn't climb alone. Someone prayed, someone encouraged, someone believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. Forgetting that truth disconnects you from compassion. When you remember where you came from, you remain humble. Humility is not weakness, it's strength under control. It allows you to relate to others without pride and to help others without judgment. It keeps you teachable, no matter how successful you become. The person who forgets their past stops learning, because they start believing they already know it all. But the person who remembers their journey understands that growth never ends. Every level of success still requires dependence on God and the lessons of humility that began long before the spotlight. The truth is, success can be dangerous if it changes your heart. Money, fame, and recognition have the power to alter how you see yourself and how you treat others. But remembering where you came from acts as an anchor. It keeps you grounded when everything around you rises. It keeps your spirit soft and your eyes clear. It reminds you that everything you have is borrowed grace, not permanent ownership. When you stay humble, you protect yourself from the false confidence that success brings. There's something powerful about walking into abundance, but still carrying the heart of someone who once had nothing. It means you don't waste resources, you don't look down on others, and you never take blessings for granted. The higher you climb, the more careful you must be to keep your feet on the ground. The truly great people in life are those who can sit in high places, yet speak with kindness, who can have everything yet treat everyone with respect. Greatness is not defined by possessions or power, it's defined by humility and gratitude. Let me share a short example. There was a young man named Ibrahim who grew up in a small village with almost nothing. His parents struggled to afford even basic needs, but they taught him faith, integrity, and hard work. For years, he prayed that God would bless him so he could change his family's life. Through dedication and grace, Ibrahim earned a scholarship, studied abroad, and built a successful business. In time, he became wealthy and respected. Yet, unlike many others, he never forgot where he came from. Every year, he returned to his village to build schools, sponsor students, and provide clean water for the families he once lived among. When people asked him why he still did it, when he could have stayed in luxury, he said, "I cannot forget the soil that grew me. My success means nothing if it doesn't help the place that shaped me." His humility not only blessed others, but also kept his life in balance. He never allowed pride to erase his past. And because he remembered, God kept increasing his blessings. Ibrahim's story teaches that when you remember your roots, you honor the journey that made you who you are. You also become a living bridge between what was and what can be. Remembering the struggle gives meaning to your success. It prevents you from misusing what you have gained. Gratitude becomes your guardrail, and humility becomes your strength. Life moves in seasons. Today you may be the one at the top, but tomorrow someone else will rise. When you remember your beginnings, you celebrate others instead of competing with them. You encourage the next dreamer instead of ignoring them. You understand their hunger because you once lived it. This kind of humility keeps your blessings flowing. God trusts those who never forget their dependence on Him. So as your life expands and your table overflows, always take time to look back and give thanks. Remember the days when you had less, the people who stood by you, and the prayers that carried you. Let gratitude fill your heart so pride never finds room. Because forgetting where you came from is the first step toward falling. Remembering it is the foundation that keeps you standing. Stay kind, stay humble, and stay teachable. The same God who lifted you from the dust can raise another from the same place. And if you keep your heart low, while your blessings rise high, you will continue to grow in both grace and greatness, not just in wealth, but in wisdom, compassion, and purpose. When God blesses you with wealth, opportunity, or success, He is not simply giving you a reward. He is entrusting you with a responsibility. Money that comes from heaven is not meant to stop with you. It is meant to flow through you. The greatest test of divine blessing is not how much you receive, but how much you are willing to release. A selfish person becomes like a reservoir, storing everything, holding tightly, afraid to share. But a generous person becomes like a river, constantly flowing, giving and refreshing others. The river never runs dry because it is always connected to its source. Likewise, when you live with a giving spirit, your supply never ends because the God who gave once will continue to give again and again. A reservoir hoards. It keeps everything for itself, thinking that accumulation guarantees security. But over time, still water becomes stagnant, lifeless, and filled with decay. The same happens to people who hold tightly to their blessings. When money becomes your master instead of your servant, your heart hardens, your joy fades, and your peace disappears. You start living in fear of loss instead of faith in abundance. God never created you to be a storage of blessings. He created you to be a channel of them. The more freely blessings flow through you, the more God can send to you. Generosity is one of the greatest proofs of maturity and trust in God. Giving does not decrease you, it increases your capacity to receive. It aligns your heart with the nature of God, who gives constantly, selflessly, and joyfully. When you give to others, you mirror His character. The act of generosity breaks the chains of greed and pride. It reminds you that everything you have is borrowed from heaven, and that you are only a steward, not the owner. True giving goes beyond money. It includes kindness, encouragement, time, and compassion. Some people may never have wealth to share, but they can still be rivers of grace through words, actions, and love. A generous heart finds ways to give even when resources are limited, because giving is not about the amount. It's about the attitude. When you give from your heart, no matter how small, it carries divine power. A small seed planted in faith can grow into a great tree of blessings. There is a spiritual principle that governs this truth. The hand that gives never runs dry. This doesn't mean that you give to get, but that generosity attracts divine favor. God looks at those who share and says, I can trust this one with more. When you make others' lives better, heaven ensures that yours never lacks. A river is constantly being refilled because it keeps flowing. The moment it stops, it begins to dry. Many people experience financial and spiritual dryness, not because they lack resources, but because they stopped being rivers. They began to store instead of share, to count instead of contribute. Giving also keeps your heart alive. Every time you bless someone, something awakens inside you. A quiet joy, a sense of purpose, a reminder that life is not about possessions, but impact. Money loses its hold on you the moment you start using it for good. Instead of being a symbol of greed, it becomes a tool of grace. That is why generous people are often the happiest ones. Their joy is not built on how much they own, but on how much good they create with what they have. Let me share a short example. There was once a businessman named who owned a small textile company. He was not the wealthiest man in his city, but he had a heart full of compassion. Whenever his workers faced hardship, illness, education fees, or family needs, quietly helped them. He never made a show of his giving. He simply believed that his business existed not just for profit, but for purpose. Years later, when an unexpected crisis hit the market, many businesses collapsed, but companies stood strong. Even during difficult months, he never stopped giving. In fact, he increased his generosity, feeding poor families and supporting his employees. When people asked how his business survived, when so many others closed, smiled and said, "A river never dries up when it keeps flowing." His generosity became his protection. What he gave came back multiplied, not just in money, but in loyalty, respect, and peace. Arif's story is a reflection of divine truth. When you give, you build a circle of blessing around your life. The seeds you sow into others eventually find their way back to you, often in ways you could never imagine. God measures trust by generosity. If He sees that you can handle wealth with an open hand, He will continue to pour into it. But if you close your fist, the flow stops. So when God sends money your way, don't grip it tightly. Use it to bless, to heal, to lift. Let your life be like a flowing river, pure, refreshing, and full of movement. Give freely and quietly, expecting nothing in return. Your generosity will speak louder than any words, and your blessings will grow deeper than any riches. A reservoir keeps and loses. A river gives and gains. Choose to be the river that never runs dry. Because the more you allow blessings to flow through you, the more heaven will trust you as a vessel of abundance. And you will discover that true wealth is not in what you keep, but in what you give away. My dear friends, remember this truth. When money comes from God, keep quiet and stay wise. Not every blessing is meant to be shouted about. Some blessings are sacred. They are meant to be protected, cherished, and used with divine purpose. Let your actions show where your heart is. Let your humility speak louder than your possessions. Let your generosity tell the story of your gratitude.